Round 4. Ding, ding, ding. Well, we're into round 4, day 4 of the Norway court case. And what do we have for you today? Well, after yesterday's court case, the newspaper came out and they interviewed some of the Jehovah's Witnesses. And so we're going to read the whole paper because we have a translation in English. But the Jehovah's Witnesses in the district court, it feels terribly unfair. Terribly unfair. So let's get right into that. I'm going to blow that up for you guys. So grab your coffees, hang on to your seats. This is quite the day. We're going to get in and we're going to meet a lot of the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that are going to be coming up next. So let's look at how the Jehovah's Witnesses of Norway feel. The newspaper wrote this article. They feel it's very unfair. And on Wednesday, several current members of the Jehovah's Witnesses testified in the Oslo District Court, and several parents expressed that the state's claim hurt. No one has been at our house. No one has heard from us how we are doing, said the one guy. So, here it is. On Wednesday, several current members testified, and several parents expressed the state's claim hurt. So on Wednesday, the dispute between the Jehovah's Witnesses and the state entered a new phase. After both the state and the Jehovah's Witnesses made their opening statements earlier in the week, the coming court days have been set aside for witnesses' statements. Both parties have called a number of witnesses to illuminate and support their side of the case. And the third day of the trial was set aside until the witnesses, Jehovah's Witnesses of call, all 8 witnesses who gave evidence are current members of the religious community. And most of them have, at one time, been excluded from the religious community, only to return. And nevertheless, they defend the practice. Had to wait for baptism. The first witness statement was given by Soliv. I won't pronounce all these names, they're Norwegian. The state believes that the Jehovah's Witness strict exclusion practice is a violation of the members' organizational practices, and a violation of children's rights as defined in the Religious Communities Act and the UN Convention on the Rights of a Child. Now, during the questioning, both the state and the Jehovah's Witness lawyers were interested in hearing more about the witnesses' family situation. Earlier in the case, the state argued that the children are subjected to pressure to be baptized, preferably at a young age. Jehovah's Witness lawyers were therefore keen to show that this is not the case, and Dal herself felt that she had already had a personal relationship with Jehovah at the age of 11 and wanted to be baptized. She says, I felt how he helped me, that it was he who created the founded planet and this wonderful life. As an 11-year-old, I was convinced that I was ready to be baptized. However, her parents did not think so, and she therefore had to wait until she was 15 before she was baptized, according to Dahl. Everyone has to make their own choice. Several of the other witnesses explained about similar experiences, or that they as parents themselves have asked their children to wait. The lawyers were also interested in how Dahl would react if her own daughters did not want to be baptized. The Bible teaches us that people have free will, and that Jehovah respects the people make their own choices. And when he does that, we also have to respect that. Dahl emphasized that it is not a matter of course to be baptized. Like several of the other witnesses, she also emphasized that children of witnesses must go through the same extensive process everyone else if they want to be baptized. As a parent, you want the best for your children, but even if it's difficult and it hurts, it is respected that everyone has to make their own choice. Dahl herself was excluded when she was in her 20s. She was disfellowshipped. And she explained that the disfellowshipping was more or less self-chosen, in the sense that the case could have a different outcome if she had acted differently. She says, I would think that that applies to most people. The elders went to great lengths to convince me to stay. But I had made up my mind, and when they realized that, they respected it, but made it clear that there would always be a way back. So Several of the other witnesses told similar stories that they experienced that God and the congregation were ready to forgive, but that they were not ready to forgive themselves for the sins they had committed. The witnesses were also asked whether the longing for family and the social network was decisive for their return to the congregation. Although several admitted that this had been a mistake, they believed that it had not been decisive. Getting forgiveness, restoring the relationship with Jehovah was more important. Although the practice of exclusion is strict, the witnesses believe that it had been brought with its positive consequences for themselves. So it defends the exclusionary practice. The state's lawyer asked Dahl if she could explain to the court what lies in the religious community's exclusion practice. And according to Dahl, it has three reasons. We call ourselves Jehovah's people, and that lies as an obligation. Our behavior can either bring glory or dishonor upon him. And secondly, there is also an arrangement that protects the congregation, she explained. If you overlook sin, you can encourage a lax attitude, said Dahl, and drew comparisons to why the police crack down on drinking and driving and speeding offenses. And finally, there is an arrangement that protects ourselves. It may help someone who has taken the wrong course to return to Jehovah. Unfair to be put in a stall. All witnesses were also asked what they thought about the state's administrator's decision. It was at this point that the clearest emotional reactions came. Many fear the consequences this will have for the attitudes of Jehovah's Witnesses in society. A witness said that the children's school had been positive about giving the children alternative education or exemptions, but that she feared how this would turn out in the future. Another said that the loss of right to marry and that one can no longer legally marry in the congregation's assembly room was a strain for couples who got married. Dahl was clearly upset when she began to tell how she and her family had reacted to this. It feels terribly unfair to be put in a stall like that. No one has been at our house. No one has heard from us about how we were doing. On Friday, these ex-JWs will be testifying. Rolf Ferruli is up first. And then Hildy, Teresa, Jan Nilsson, and then Numi. And you can leave them a message here. This kind of gives you a link there, right? And I'll have these posted on the site here. But here's a kind of a picture of everyone that's taken a front end in Norway. And these guys are working for the whole world, really. Rolf Ferruli. And we'll get to know Rolf. We'll do some more articles and testimonials on everyone. There's Hildy, Teresa, Jan Nilsson, and Numi, if I got all the names right, and if I got them wrong. So I want to give everyone a big thumbs up from Norway, and we'll continue on with the article. Okay, yeah, so tomorrow, Friday, these guys will all be testifying. So now we're going to get into day 4, January 11th, 2024. Right here is the, for JW from headquarters, listen in on translation. One is Jason Wise from the UK Legal Department. The other is from the lobbyism group of the EAJW, named to be confirmed. So there's the two guys from the Jehovah's Witness side. I don't see any facial hair yet. These guys are pretty clean shaven. Okay, so lobbyism group to be confirmed. Here's kind of how the court looks. Both parties have 2 days to present witnesses. Today is the turn of the JWs again. The same as yesterday, JW witnesses are saying how important shunning and disfellowshipping is, and they also showed what the organized book says about it. The theme of today is that JW witnesses says that nobody has told them what to do regarding shunning, only the Bible. And the judge then asked them about the Watchtower JW literature, etc., and they had to admit that yes, some of it was in the literature, but it's only in the Bible. As an expert witness had testified, he read from documents and seemed confused. The JW witnesses just repeat the same thing. It's all in the Bible, not in the literature. And then quote the same scriptures. They speak as if repeating bullet points, and it is a strange thing to listen to. They discussed family members, so could you imagine reading this? It's in the Bible. It's not in the literature. Like these guys have been put in a room and brainwashed on what to say. They're like parrots. Okay, so an expert witness testified he read from the documents. He was confused. The JW witnesses just repeated over and over again. They discussed family members outside the organization portraying complexities. Some mentioned contact with those who left, implying it's not straightforward. One JW struggled with detailed questions. Notably, a JW teared up when asked about her time outside the organization, observed by the judge. None of the witnesses talked about the Watchtower literature. They never mentioned anything about its existence. It is only mentioned when pushed by the judge. It's always just the Bible, as if they have only ever read the Bible and got the instruction to shun from there alone, without any literature telling them to. This is how they twist things. This is how JW.org twists things in court. And they talk about us twisting things. Now, even JW's own experts use the expression violence in regard to social isolation. The second to last witness for Jehovah's Witnesses on Thursday afternoon was professor of jurisprudence in Oxford University College, and Haiti Stroman Lyle. He's an expert on human rights. Here's a news report explaining what he said. Sorry if I got the names wrong. An expert believes that if the Ministry of Children and Family Affairs and state administrators conclude that Jehovah's Witnesses engage in negative social control, they're obligated to report Jehovah's Witnesses to Child Protective Services. Absolutely. So now, Thursday marked the last day of the testimony for Jehovah's Witnesses in the lawsuit the religious community has filed against the state through the Ministry of Children and Family Affairs. The background of the lawsuit stems from a series of decisions by the Ministry of Children and Family Affairs and the state administrator concluding that Jehovah's Witnesses are denied state subsidies and stripped of their registration as a religious community. Jehovah's Witnesses argued that these decisions are invalid. Over 50 million kroner is said to be at stake. Expert witnesses. So the state's decisions have, among other things, been justified by the assertion that Jehovah's Witnesses' practice of exclusion involves negative social control and violates children's rights. Over the past 2 days, Jehovah's Witnesses have presented several witnesses in the Oslo District Court, some of whom have personal experience with being excluded. Nevertheless, they spoke about the positive effects that exclusion practice has had on them. The second to the last witness for Jehovah's Witnesses on Thursday afternoon was a professor of the jurisprudence at the Oxford University College. And he's an expert on human rights, and he commented, among other things, on the international legal aspects of the state's decision. High threshold. Lyle explained that the decisions assumed that the exclusion practice involves negative social control, which in turn violates children's rights under the UN Convention on Rights of the Child. Lyle finds it difficult to see that this is the case, and he began by stating that there is a high threshold under the Convention for an action to be considered a violation. He pointed out that the Children's Convention is an agreement entered into by almost all world states, and the provisions are generally formulated to encompass very different states like Norway and Sudan. That's what the convention is. Here I thought it was a district convention. So if I said that in a previous video, this points it out. So here's what it is. The Children's Convention is an agreement entered into by almost all world states. So pretty well everyone in the world is looking after the interests of children. So that seems pretty simple. Now, for something to be a violation of the convention, there must be an agreement amongst the states on this. So in addition, the threshold for something to be a violation of the convention is high. Jehovah's Witnesses' exclusion practice is an old tradition that has been practiced long before the Children's Convention. For this practice to be considered a violation now, there must have been a development that makes all the states party to the convention consider it's a violation. I can see that it has happened, said Lyle. Cannot interpret as they please. Both the ministry and the state administrator have referred to the Article 19 of the Children's Convention, which protects children from psychological abuse. But what constitutes psychological abuse is not up to an individual state to determine, according to Lyle. He argued extensively that the states are not free to interpret the content of the convention as they wish. If something is to be a violation, it must be so in all states party to the convention. If each party interprets the convention as they please, it undermines the entire principle of the international law that it is an agreement between parties. Goes a bit far. The professor then went through a general comment from the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, attempting to define what psychological abuse entails. He shows that isolation is mentioned as something that can be psychological abuse. Then it became a question of interpretation, whether the religious exclusion can be read into it. I think that goes a bit far. The reason for this is that the exclusion practice is an old arrangement not mentioned at all in the general comment. Margin of appreciation. At the same time, he pointed to the so-called margin of appreciation. This means that the states have some discretion to implement their own laws that provide greater rights than children have under the Children's Convention. And it cannot be used to interpret the convention itself in a way that gives more profound rights than agreed upon among the states. And it opens the door for stricter laws, not stricter interpretations. Even though Norway has the opportunity to do so, the legislator has not passed any law at this point that grants better rights, he noted. He also refers to a report that has not conclusively stated the negative social control is not a legal concept in the Norwegian law. Child Protective Services. Another point made by the legal scholar was that the Article 19 of the Children's Convention gives the state the duty to implement child protection measures to safeguard the child. According to the Child Welfare Act, children have the right to child protection measures when there are grounds to believe that serious neglect has taken place. In cases where such a situation may arise, the state also has an obligation to report to Child Protective Services, Lyle pointed out. If they believe that Jehovah's Witnesses engage in negative social control, there is reason to believe it would be serious neglect. Why haven't you reported to Child Protective Services? Lyle asked, referring to the prosecution. Translated from this link here. This is an expert witness for the JW mentioned in the above article. So this is Haiti Stroman Lyle. So Haiti Stroman Lyle is a professor of law of Oxford University College. He is a legal and sociology of law scholar, if I said that right. He did his PhD at the Norwegian Center for Human Rights at the Law Faculty of University of Oslo. He grew up in Finnmark and in north of Norway, and his father was Sami and his mother is from Iran. He has been working as a senior advisor for Save the Children Norway and as an advisor for Geldu Resource Center for the Rights of Indigenous People. And he has also worked as a journalist for the Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation. Now, he is the leader of a research ethics committee at the Sami University College, and he was the chief editor in the legal journal. That's the Critique of the Law journal for 6 years. And he's been a member of the National Committee for Research Ethics in social sciences and humanities for 4 years. And he's also served 2 years as a member of the Press Complaint Commission in Norway. So this kind of gives you a little bit. You can look at his CV on LinkedIn. Lyle has published many scientific articles and books, in addition to the book on the International Law of Aims of Education. One might divide the scientific publication into these topics. So this just gives you a little bit on him. Now back to what happened today in the court. And I'm just going to have to take a break here. Be right back. Okay, back to what happened in court today. The witness testimony of Kerry. At 1440, Kerry speaks about his background as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. At the age of 15, he left the National Church and was baptized at almost 17 years old. He discussed what it means to be a board member in the Jehovah's Witnesses and how the organization is governed in Scandinavia both legally and spiritually. Everyone works voluntarily, and there are 9 individuals spiritually responsible for Scandinavia. They follow the Bible, considering it the most important teacher, and discuss matters relating to the congregations or functions, and read from the letters to Titus. The elder councils has responsibilities, and there are 1,300 elders in Norway, all men. The same pattern exists today as in the beginning. Regarding the daily life in the congregation, there are 2 meetings per week with elders giving lectures. Everyone else, including children, may give I don't know what that means. Probably talks, because everyone can give talks. Now, the baptism process is discussed, questioning whether one should take a test before baptism, often taken more than a year. They read from the Bible about Jesus' baptism, emphasizing the need to love Jehovah and one another as oneself. And it's considered a price to be a disciple, surrendering oneself to God. And when asked about distinctions within the congregation, Kerry denies such distinctions. And Kerry, remember, folks, is the Jehovah's Witness spokesman. So he denies such distinctions, stating that everyone is considered brothers and sisters, though some may be busier than others. The discussion touches on responsibilities for one's family, and neglecting one's children is considered worse than being unfaithful. And there is a discussion about disfellowshipping and exclusion, confirming that elders, similar to priests, take responsibility. Unbaptized individuals cannot be excluded. It only occurs after baptism. And Jehovah's Witnesses follow a framework, and all welcome the return, or welcome anyone to return. Anyone can participate in meetings, singing, and listening, but only baptized individuals can give lectures. It's mentioned that the disfellowshipped individuals are the ones who exclude Jehovah's Witnesses, and it is extremely rare for children to be disfellowshipped. If an elder is excluded, whether grandparents maintain contact with their grandchildren depends on the family, not the congregation. End of that part of it. So the court is not competent to draw conclusions. Looks like that's the end of the article. That's the end of it for today. Now we're into the comments on this section here. So I'll post all of this for everyone to see on the description here. So that's what happened today. That was day 4. And stay tuned for tomorrow, because tomorrow we get to hear from the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and we get to hear their testimony. Okay, folks, well, that brings an end to the program. So until next time, keep living your life with love. Bye for now. Thanks again for watching. We appreciate your dislikes and your likes. If you would like to support the channel, just press join and buy us a coffee once a month. Until next time, keep dancing, smiling, laughing, and most of all, keep loving those around you. And have a great day.
Produced by Fixing My Faith.